when solving triangles, if you're given 3 pieces of information, except for 3 angles, but any other combinations of sides and angles, if you have 3 of them, you can solve the triangle completely. Up till now, first of all, I'd say, look if you have a 90-degree angle. If you have a 90-degree angle and 2 other pieces of information, then you can use SOHCAHTOA. If you don't have a 90-degree angle, the second thing we look for is the sine law. Do I have an angle and its opposite side? If I have an angle and its opposite side, and 1 other piece of information, I definitely can use the sine law, and then I can solve the whole triangle. But if you have these 2 situations, either side angle side or side side side, you don't have an angle on the opposite side and you can't use the sine law, we use the cosine law. And the cosine law is really close to a squared plus b squared equals c squared. But a squared plus b squared equals c squared only works if you have 90 degrees. So we have this added extra minus 2ab cos c to make it work. I'll also get you to write, because it's on your formula sheet. Your formula sheet said we took the time to get the c by itself, or cos c by itself. And this is the different version of the cosine law. They're exactly the same, just someone decided to rearrange the equation to get cos c by itself. We're going to use this side, this one, when we want to find a side. And we're going to use this one when we want to find an angle. Because the angle's already by itself in the one, the side is already by itself. And just like the sine law, you know how we sort of ignored A, B's, and C's and didn't worry about if our triangle had different letters, how we were going to do that? The important thing in the sine law is that angles went with opposite sides. And that's very important in the cosine law as well. So the only thing you really have to think about in the cosine law is whatever angle you are thinking about, which I highlighted, it's labeled as C, but it could be PQ, could be a W. I know, crazy. Whatever angle you are using, it goes with its opposite side there in the formula. The A and the B doesn't matter what other sides you use. The A and the B doesn't matter if you put one number first or the other number first. Just matters that you connect the angle and the side this way. And same thing here, whatever angle it is, the side opposite is the only one that gets subtracted. So I usually fill these things in my formula first just to make sure they're in the right spot, and then the other numbers won't matter. Very, very cool. So we're going to do some questions to get used to our cos law. So I'm going to rewrite this form of a cosine law. And I'm going to highlight this C with this C. Because now I've got P, R's, and Q's. And in part A and in part B, they say determine the length from Q to R. Are you okay that the length from Q to R is opposite angle P? So I can put a little P here and a little P there. Okay. So, first, because you're going to get triangle questions on your test, and I'm not going to, it's not going to be like, you have, this is a cosine law one, hint, hint, hint. No, you don't get that. You just get the triangle. So when you get the triangle, you have to go through the process of, is it 90 degrees? Because you should use SOHCAHTOA and a squared plus b squared equals c squared first whenever you can. No, it's not 90 degrees. Then, can I use the sine law? Do I have an angle and its opposite side? No, I have an angle, but I don't know its opposite side, and I don't know any other angles. So this tells me I have to use the cosine law. Now, the important thing about the cosine law is the side you want to find goes with the angle. So if I have the angle of 31, I'm not going to write c squared, it's p. I'll write p squared, and over here I'll leave some space. Because these two are opposites of each other. They have to go together. Now the others, the 10 and the 17, it doesn't matter if you write 17 squared plus 10 squared or 10 squared plus 17 squared. Do you see why it doesn't matter? Because you're adding them. The order wouldn't matter if you added. And then when I subtract, it doesn't matter if I go 10 times 17 or 17 times 10. Because you're multiplying them. Order doesn't matter there either. You just need to use your other two sides. And the cosine law, the next step, it's expected that you can type this all into your calculator all at once. I'm going to open up my calculator. And I'm going to write the whole thing in. 10 squared plus 17 squared minus 2 times 10 times 17 times cos of 31 degrees. Type that in all into your calculator all at once. 97.563. So I get p squared equals 97.563. I still haven't solved for p. What's the opposite of squaring? Square rooting. When you square root, I'm going to put this plus or minus here. Because when you square root something, you always have to have plus or minus. However, what are we solving for? The length of a triangle. Can the length of the triangle be negative? So I'm going to write the plus or minus, and I'm going to put a line through it saying it's not needed. But I want to show you that because I've noticed in like online videos, and I probably did it as past as a teacher, that sometimes teachers skip the plus or minus because they know it has to be positive, and they just write down the positive answer. But it sort of trains students to not think about it sometimes. And then they get a habit of not thinking about it. And then when you need it, what happens? You don't think about it, you forget it. So it's kind of, I'm trying to make sure you don't forget about the plus or minus. You do it even when it's not necessary, and at least go, oh, it wasn't necessary. So I'm going to go to my answer here on my calculator. And I'm going to go second square root, and I'm going to highlight it and steal it from there. All those decimal places, 9.877. And at this point, it's really good to read the question, because what could possibly go wrong? I got the answer. What could go wrong is you just go, yay, I got the answer, and move on. What would happen in this situation if I moved on? I would lose a half mark for rounding. I would also lose a half mark for not, I'd lose a whole mark because I didn't round. What does it say? To the nearest tenth. Oh my goodness. I should have had 9.9. And what else would I have forgotten? Units. Centimeters. Cosine law, just like the sine law, it's just plugging things in. It's really kind of nice. Plug things in. You don't have to square root both sides and get the answer. Not a crazy amount of math. Not like the ambiguous case for sine. That was like a little intense, right? Cosine law, pretty straightforward. Let's do the second one here. Oh, something interesting. No, nothing interesting happens with the second one. I'm sorry, it's pretty boring. Okay, again, I want to find p squared. So over here, I'm going to have cos of 131 because if I take out my highlighter, right, these are the ones that are opposite each other. Then the rest, 10 squared plus 17 squared minus 2 times 10 times 17. And when I go to my calculator, I was like, oh, I can cheat a little bit here. You notice that it's almost exactly the same numbers as here, so I highlight this, I push enter, I don't have to retype it. I just have to change the 31 to 131. I get 612.060. Then P would equal plus or minus, well, I guess, put a line through that. I don't need that plus or minus, but when we square root both sides, we should think about that. Square root this answer, 24, and now I know that I want to round to 1 decimal place. And I already know I want to include my units. 24.7 centimeters. So I'd like you to circle 3, 4, and 6. And I want you to do 3 right now. 3 just asks you to look at the triangle and determine which strategy you should use. Look for SOHCAHTOA first, then sine law, then cosine law.